All right. Hello, everyone. I am Mary White, one of the co-chairs of WEED, and we are delighted to have the first of 3 presentations of artists from the WEED online exhibition, Kinship with Birds in Flight and Plight. And WEED was founded in 1996, and it's a volunteer-run collective of female-identified visual artists, writers, curators, art historians, researchers, and scientists interested in highlighting the intersection between art and ecological issues in science. And as I said, I'm Mary White, one of the co-chairs, with our co-host and board member, Christina Bertia. We'll start with a land acknowledgements, and if you wish, please type your location and land acknowledgement in the chat so everybody knows how many places we're coming from. WEED's office sits in the territory of the Wichen, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chichonio-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County, near one of the largest shell mounds in the Bay Area. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muiwak Ohlone tribe and other familiar descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize the Muiwak Ohlone tribe, who are campaigning to become federally recognized, the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone, who are researching, revitalizing, and preserving Ramaytush Ohlone history and culture, and the Confederated Village of Lejeune and the Socorro Te Land Trust, who are working to return native land back to Indigenous stewardship. I have a little bit of Zoom housekeeping. We're recording this presentation, and please keep your audio muted during the presentation, or one of our co-hosts may mute you. There's extra noise. If you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat, and we will bring them up at the end of the presentation. At the end of the presentation, we'll stop the first recording and start a second recording of the questions and answers. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Christina Bertia, who is on the exhibitions committee and has organized this session.
So the format for this evening will be that we have a slideshow with each artist's image, and we'll be proceeding alphabetically through the names that you can see on the screen right now. And each of these artists will have 4 to 4.5 minutes to talk about their piece that is in the Kinship with Birds in Flight and Plight show. And we hope that all of you have had a chance to see this exhibition online at kunstmatrix.com. It's really quite a wonderfully diverse exhibition. So we'll just go ahead and start with Jane Ingram Allen. Oh, except for that I can't advance now. Oops.
I'm mentioning that we're going to have a timer at the end of 4.5 minutes. So if you hear a little noise, that's what it is.
Mary, I can't escape and I can't advance. Can you stop my screen share, please? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, what you have to do is go up to the top left to escape, and it should escape.
Mary, I'm explaining that I can't do that, and I cannot advance either. Nope, there we go. Okay, here's Jane.
Okay, my name is Jane Ingram Allen, and I'm in Santa Rosa, California, in the Bay Area. And the piece that's in this show is called Endangered Birds of Pettox Island. And Pettox Island is one of the 34 small islands in the Boston Harbor. And I had a residency in 2016 at the Boston Harbor Islands National and State Park. And I stayed there for a week and did this project with public participation. And for this piece, which is in the Visitor Center at Long Wharf in Boston, it's where you catch the ferry to go out to the Boston Harbor Islands. And so for this piece, I wanted to emphasize the birds found on the islands. And all of these birds in this piece are representing 6 endangered species. And they are the black crowned night heron, the double-crested cormorant, the great egret, the least tern, the American oyster catcher, and the spotted sandpiper. And these birds are all made with handmade paper. And I have one of them here that you can see on the screen, I think. Can you see that? I don't know if I'm.
Yes, we can.
Okay, and this one is representing one of the cormorants. Sometimes I added things also collected on the beach on the Boston Harbor Island. I was staying at Pettick's Island. And this one is the American oyster catcher. And during this residency, I wanted to make handmade paper for the birds from invasive plants. And so I used 3 invasive plants: common reed, which is Phragmites, Oriental bittersweet vine, and Bell's honeysuckle. And so it's a combination of handmade paper made from invasive plants and representing birds that are endangered on the Pettick's Island, one of the Boston Harbor Islands in the National and State Park. And I have had a long history of using bird imagery in my work. This is another piece here that was part of an installation back in the early 90s. It's also made with handmade paper, but this piece is all natural materials. They are joined with thread, and it's installed over a plate glass window at the Visitor Center for the Boston Harbor Islands at Long Wharf in Boston. So I think that's all I have to say about it. But if we have questions at the end, I'll be happy to talk more about it. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Dianne Ayres. Dianne?
Yes, thank you. Dianne Ayres.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. And I want to thank all the folks who organized this exhibit and to everybody that keeps WEED running. I recently became aware of the organization, so it's really wonderful to find other artists who have similar missions. So why did I make this textile piece of a condor? It's kind of a goofy looking bird. I like birds, especially raptors, because they're larger and sometimes I can actually get a decent photograph of them. They don't move quite as fast as those little brown birds that flit around, drive you crazy. And condors are kind of a poster child of an environmental success story, or so we hope. The 22 small stitches within the text on the left of the piece represent the last remaining California condors in the wild, the last of which was taken into captivity in 1987. And California condor is the species name. The original range of the species was the southwestern United States and Baja, Mexico. So at the time, there was a very heated debate at whether to pursue a captive breeding program. Even David Brower, renowned environmentalist, was against it, saying that it would breed the wild out of the species. And I can kind of understand that. It was assumed that at the time that the decline of the species was mainly due to loss of habitat. But many agencies and organizations such as the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the San Diego Zoo, Los Angeles Zoo, the Peregrine Fund, and Ventana Wildlife Society which includes many wildlife professionals, advocates, and volunteers, a recovery program was undertaken. So today there are 354 free-flying condors, mostly in California and some in Arizona, and another 204 in captivity. So that sounds great. A lot more condors these days, but it was quite a bumpy road, and there are still many perils. The first condors were released back to the wild in 1992, and curious things started happening. These young juveniles would act like young juveniles that didn't have parents teaching them how to be wild condors. They would steal sandwiches from campers and get themselves into dangerous situations. So most of those issues got worked out throughout the recovery program, but it was really quite a learning experience. And condors continued to die. It wasn't until the year 2000 before it was completely acknowledged that lead poisoning was the main issue of condor deaths and the main reason for the near extinction of the population. Hunters not wanting to haul out inedible parts of their take leave the bullet-laden heart and entrails. And condors, being scavengers at necessary link in the food chain, find this and unwittingly get poisoned. So finally, in 2019, a ban on the use of lead bullets went into effect in California. But lead poisoning continues to be the main cause of death in California condors. It's just a very fraught issue, really horrible. On top of that, avian influenza has taken at least 9 California condors this past year. They were all in Arizona. So California condors are still near the edge of a precipice. Thankfully, there are many dedicated wildlife professionals and volunteers who are working to bring the species to a self-sustaining population. And in the meantime, my bird here, Stitch, I named my stitched bird, with its outstretched wings, is a pose from a screenshot from the live condor cam in Big Sur, which is hosted by the Ventana Wildlife Society. So the bird cams that many of you probably watch are really quite fun to watch, but they are addictive. So, and I can put a link to their website in the chat here. Thank you. I really appreciate Stitch being involved in the exhibit. Thank you so much.
And next is Katherine Boland, who unfortunately was not able to make it. She lives in Australia, and the time difference was going to be too challenging. So she sent a statement that I'll read. Of Feathers is the title of this piece. In a world that has seen the flight of birds stilled by the devastating consequences of human activity, Of Feathers stands as a solemn testament to our shared culpability and a poignant call to arms for the preservation of our fragile planet. Created with the power of artificial intelligence, this work unveils a wall of boxes brimming with delicate feathers. The feathered avatars that once graced our skies have been silenced, victims of an irrevocable chain reaction of environmental destruction and catastrophic climate upheaval. The daunting absence of bird song in our lives, in the rustling trees and in the tranquil dawn chorus, serves as a poignant reminder that our actions bear consequence, not only for ourselves, but for the countless creatures that share our world. Of Feathers pays homage to the beauty and grace that defines the avian world's existence. Each feather is a tiny masterpiece of evolution, a testament to the intricate balance of nature that is being so wantonly disrupted. This digital artwork, made possible by the huge advances in technology, challenges us to confront our own complicity in the fate of our feathered friends, as well as the possibility of redemption through our own capacity for innovation and change. It beckons us to reflect upon our role in this modern tragedy, to pause in reverence, and to resolve to protect the habitats that remain for the fragile remnants of Earth's vibrant tapestry. So that's what Katherine would have shared had she been able to be here. So And here we have Victoria Chaban.
Hi. Okay, let's see. Can everyone hear me? Is that working?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi. So I began painting birds as a representation of my life changing and the backgrounds as protection. And it grew into almost a textile of the background, the patterns as environments to protect the birds. And I read many years ago that Rachel Carson wrote in her 1963 book, Silent Spring, birds could serve as winged sentinels of environmental degradation. And she wrote that in 1963. And where we are today with the environmental impact on birds is extremely severe, as we know. And I decided to paint the 12 most endangered birds, starting with this piece, which is called Regent Honeyeaters, Eucalyptus and Honeybush. And the Regent Honeyeaters are number 12 on the most endangered species list. Also, the California condor being on there, number 1 being the kakapo from New Zealand. The Regent Honeyeater is native to southeastern Australia, and the background represents the eucalyptus trees that they eat, and the nectar is the flower that you see. So all of my paintings are protections of the birds, and I'm creating environments for them in the backgrounds. Another painting that I've done similarly, all of them have very detailed backgrounds, was about the Great Salt Lake, another area that has gone through great change and needs protection. It is actually turning around. When I painted the Great Salt Lake and the Great Ibis, which is another one on the endangered species list, what's wonderful about both paintings is that the birds, including the condor, they're starting to have some protection. So we are seeing that we are making a difference in their lives, although we know that with all birds, we have an incredible task ahead of us to protect them, because they are our gatekeepers and we are nothing without the birds. So that's mainly about what I am painting about, protecting our birds and creating environments in my paintings to protect them. And that's mainly what I have to say about my work.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Elizabeth Kenneday. Elizabeth? Is Elizabeth here?
I don't think she's here,
I
Christina.
don't think she's here. I think we should keep going. Maybe she'll show up.
Olivia Losi Unger?
Hi, everybody. Can people hear me? Sound good?
Yes.
Awesome. My name is Liv or Livia. I am a professional muralist based out of Oakland, in the Bay Area. I work under the name Orlu Arts, which is just my very long, irritating name, my initials with arts on the end. So I was lucky enough to be invited to Eureka Street Art Festival this year. They do a wonderful street art festival every year for the past few years, where they bring muralists from all over California and beyond to work on some walls in Eureka. And so for this wall, I wanted to talk about shorebirds because we are experiencing a pretty rapid decline in shorebirds, and both with habitat loss, microplastics, overfishing. There's a myriad of issues that they struggle with. And Eureka, especially Humboldt Bay, is an extremely important habitat and hosts over 1 million shorebirds every single year that migrate from all over the world. So this particular piece shows a Eureka shoreline along Humboldt Bay and 3 marbled godwits, which are a really unique little bird that uses a sort of slightly curved beak to root out little crustaceans in the sand. In this mural, you can't tell from the photo, but you could literally throw a rock to the left and hit the ocean, the bay. So the goal was for it to look like the environment was traveling into the city. So I believe that public art, a lot of my art focuses on environmentalism and femininity. And I think that public art is one of the best ways that we can educate folks on important environmental issues that otherwise might not reach them. And I hope to have done that a little bit with this mural. If you go on the Eureka Street Art Festival's website, I have a whole write-up that sort of drops some links on how you can help and important organizations that are doing conservation work. And it was an absolute pleasure to paint this.
Okay, great. Thank you. Linda?
Hi. Yeah, thank you so much for the show. Yeah, it's been really good to look at everybody's artwork. This is a watercolor that is on Arch's hot press. And what I like to do when I'm working on my next piece is I walk in nature, and usually redwood trees, and either photograph them or find out, just be sort of open to odd and unusual, whatever's happening out there. So this was a tree in this redwood loop, and it had all these feathers stuck into the grooves of the bark. And it was just sort of like interesting, like they're all sort of tattered from the rain, and what are they doing in there? So we sort of surmised that people would go on their walk and pick up feathers and stick them in the tree instead of taking them with them. So it made me, I took photographs, and this is the watercolor, but it made me want to find out more about feathers and what should we do. Of course, they're just so gorgeous, but looking at sort of the history of collecting feathers. In 1918, there was the North American Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and this was to stop people from killing birds and collecting feathers because they were all being used in women's hats and other clothing. So it was destroying many birds, and that is still in effect. Let's see, but we can collect feathers from non-native species. So there's a real distinction as to whether the birds, the feathers, the eggs, the nest, whether they're from native species or from non-native. And so some of those that we could collect from are European starlings, house sparrows, Eurasian doves, ringneck pheasants, and mallard ducks. So also what I said about nests and eggs, it's illegal to take those unless they are from these non-native species, or if the nest is going to be destroyed somehow. I've noticed that even if a nest is empty and there's still birds around that are the same species of the nest, and they might use it for their nesting for the following year. So it's good to just keep it where it is. Let's see, bald eagles and golden eagles, there's a Protection Act of 1940. So it prohibits anybody from picking up an eagle feather or an eagle bone. You have to get a permit to even do that. The people to find out more about this is Fish and Wildlife, and also the Audubon Society in your area. Every area seems to have a section. Now, in the 60s and the 70s, the term leave no trace became important. And as more and more people started going out in the woods and camping, and the equipment became so much better, people were worried about campfires that were left, people leaving garbage, taking things out. And so now the National Park Service and Fish and Wildlife use that, leave no trace, as sort of a motto and a way to educate people. So I find these feathers, absolutely beautiful. And I mean, I used to just sort of pick them up wherever I found them and put them in my hat for that year and then sort of redo it the next year. But, now it's making me think about this and what is appropriate and what isn't. Oh, for some people who do feather art, if something is not, well, every state has their different laws for it. So there might be some feathers that you can buy from another state and you can use it in your art. But I think we just have to have this awareness of what we're doing and what kind of natural materials we're deciding to use, and just have more awareness about using all of the native materials that are around. And that's about it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next we have Lorna Stevens.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here, and thanks to Weed for this opportunity and for teaching me to live more consciously on this planet. And thanks to the other artists who are here today. The birds are well represented by this group. This scrapbook began in 2015 when a friend gifted me the book, and I use it to house work related to endangered and extinct species, birds. It includes chapters on the Carolina parakeet, the huia, the Guadalupe caracara, the ostrich, and the passenger pigeon. Most of the images are based on specimen collections at natural history museums. When I travel, I arrange visits and photograph the birds and develop the pages from there. I became interested in the ostrich in the 1990s when my cousin Lisa and her husband Steve decided to try ostrich farming at their farm in Atwater, Ohio. They bought 3 ostriches, Mabel, Chloe, and Mo, expecting to sell ostrich meat, skin, and feathers. The experiment didn't last long, mainly because ostriches can be aggressive and kick hard enough to seriously hurt humans and dogs. Unable to keep their 3 beloved dogs away from the ostriches and vice versa, they abandoned ostrich farming, but not before they gifted me 3 eggs and prompted my interest in the bird. Though once endangered, and though some species are extinct, in general, the ostrich is currently thriving. One reason for this is its size. It's the largest bird species, typically over 6 feet tall and weighing an average of 250 pounds. Though it can't fly, it can run up to 43 miles an hour, which allows it to escape predators such as lions, cheetahs, and perhaps humans. It's adaptable, which is why it has survived despite being hunted and kept in captivity since the Bronze Age. In the 1990s, ostrich feathers were so popular in ladies' fashion that the bird disappeared from all of North Africa. If not for ostrich farming, which began in 1838, the ostrich would probably be extinct. Today, ostriches are farmed and hunted for feathers, skin, meat, eggs, and fat, which in Somalia is believed to cure AIDS and diabetes. So to tell the story of the ostrich and our relationship to it, I developed these 2 pages. The left with pictures of how we use the ostrich, and the right with images of how the ostrich inspires us. If we review the images on the left, we see fans, costumes, beads, dusters, and dresses. Some of the more unusual uses for the ostrich are the globe in the upper right, which is the oldest known depiction of the New World, dating from 1504, or the taxidermied haft ostrich in the middle of the page, which can be found online for $1,500, wall hanger included. And finally, ostrich riding, pictured in the lower right, a currently popular pastime in South Africa. So now let's turn to how the ostrich inspired us. In the upper left, the ostrich decorates an ancient Egyptian comb from 3900 BCE. And next to it, the ostrich is a hieroglyph on this clay pot from 13 BCE. And next to that, it inspires this earthenware tile from 15th century Spain. And then in the top right, it threatens women wearing ostrich feather wigs in the 1776 John Collett drawing. He must have been an early advocate for conservation. In the next row of images, the ostrich is beautifully depicted in this Dogen sculpture from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And in this contemporary sculpture by David Shrigley, where the bird's head is missing, a reference to the ostrich head in the sand metaphor for those who avoid their problems. Fun fact, this myth originated in ancient Rome and is entirely untrue. Next are works referencing the ostrich by Matisse, Rembrandt, and Picasso. In the lower left is an exquisite Man Ray photograph of an ostrich egg. And next to that is a drawing for the ballet scenes in the Disney film Fantasia. And finally, in the lower right is Edward Muybridge's compilation of photographs of the ostrich walking. Incidentally, orthopedists are studying the ostrich's knee joints to learn how this 250-pound bird can support itself on those very thin legs. So you see, we have a long, rich, and somewhat dubious relationship with the ostrich. I hope it continues for a long time.
Great, thank you very much. And Andre Thompson was unable to be here this evening, so I will read the statement that she prepared. As a child, I always watched the birds and wished I could fly free from the woes of the world and visit new places. Among the many birds I came close to, I identified most with ravens, but continued to study endangered birds as part of my work about the environment. When I came upon a photo of a baby aplomado, I did drawings and learned more about them. I chose this drawing because it just struck me as so sweet and innocent. Aplomado is an unusual Spanish word for lead-colored, referring to the blue-gray areas of the plumage. The aplomado falcon is very slender, long-winged, and long-tailed, the size of a small peregrine falcon. A distinct feature of the falcon is that it has a groove on the side of its beak that is called a tomial tooth that helps the falcon kill its prey more easily. The aplomado falcon is on the endangered list in both the United States and in Mexico. It's endangered due to loss of grassland habitat, drought, and increasing great horned owl predation. Erosion of Chihuahuan desert grasslands from overgrazing has led to invasion by woody shrubs. And the aplomado falcon requires grasslands with less than 10% shrub cover. Also, many cattle ranches in and around falcon breeding territories are being converted to irrigated crop fields because there's a strong demand for land to grow cotton and other commodities. This situation exposes falcons to increased pesticides through their consumption of prey. Nesting success is limited by nest predation, mainly by great horned owls, drought, and the shrinking of the grassland habitat. But there's good news, good conservation news. In Texas, over 1,000 captive bred falcons, aplomado falcons, have been reintroduced, and rates of reproduction are improving due to the fact that they're providing artificial nesting structures that are designed to keep out the great horned owls. So that's a happy report about an upswing for the aplomado falcons. So next we have Therese Lahaye.
Thank you, everyone. It's delightful to migrate with you all. And can you see my screen now?
Yes.
So I am a light installation artist and light tinkerer and open water swimmer. And I swim with seabirds. And I also grew up with a mother, Eleanor Lahaye, who was known to hang up the phone if she saw a red-breasted grosbeak at the feeder. And what we're looking at right now is sun reflections that come in through the eastern window of my studio, reflecting off of a hand-formed mirror. So the time frame is about 2 hours, and this is a time lapse that we're looking at right now. And so as an open water swimmer tracking the seabirds, I discovered that a warming ocean moved onto the northwest coast in 2015, and it triggered the large fish to have an increased metabolism, and they ate all of the small fish that this diving seabirds normally eat. So over the last 5 years, we've lost almost 500,000 diving seabirds, particularly the common murres, have starved. And the ephemerality of these images translates the ephemerality of our bird population. Light birds, I'm working on a light bird installation right now in Emeryville, where I live in the East Bay near San Francisco. And it's an exterior installation, and it'll fly a 25-foot wingspan light bat on the sky canvas of the wall across the street. I just submitted the building permit, so that should be happening soon. And when the sun sets, I've been using video reflection on the mirror for a nighttime migration. And this wingspan is about 6 feet. I recently flew 80-foot wingspan light birds on top of the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco, and had wonderful response from the citizens. And we fundraised for the American Bird Conservancy that is focused on bird-safe buildings. My aspiration is to have an installation of 7 mirrors reflecting light birds, because when birds fly in murmuration, they organize themselves into groups of 7, and that 7 connects with the next and the next and the next. And it's a beautiful metaphor for group cohesion. And finally, I was just listening to an interview with Bernie Krause, who's been recording birds and other animals and creatures since the 70s. And he had an incredible sound installation at the Exploratorium, our science museum in San Francisco. And he said that we've lost over 1 billion birds since the 1970s here in the US. And so that's why this video is quiet. So it's been absolutely, engaging and educational to be here with you all, and may we continue our migration.
It- Mhm.
Okay, so I'll stop share now.
Right. Yes, please. Thank you. All right. Well, have we got everybody? All the presenters?
I think so. Uh-huh.
All right, then we want to thank you all very much for doing this, and especially thank the presenters and thank Christina for organizing it. And I just want to say a couple of words about WEED. We are a volunteer-run collective, and we are looking for a new board member who wants to work with membership. And we're looking for another board member who knows WordPress and wants to work with the upgrading of our directory. And we also want to restart our advisory board if any of you are at all interested in being.
Mary, may I interrupt for a moment? I see Sarah Haviland here in the audience. She was in my slideshow, I believe.
Okay.
Sarah, are you here? Can you present? No, that's okay. Sorry, excuse me. I'm mistaken. Go ahead.
So we'd love to have you visit weedartist.org, and I'll put the address in the chat. And this is also a donation-driven organization. So if any of you are interested in donating or in, if you're not members, I think everybody who's presented is a member, or if you have an idea for an exhibit in your area that you'd like us to work with you to develop, we'd love to do that. We now have the Kunstmatrix platform all year round. So with that, I think what we'll do is start putting your questions in the chat. And when you want to ask a question, raise your hand like this, or in the reactions, raise your hand, and we'll try to spot everybody. And Christina, do you want to lead the discussion? So, all right, so we will now close off this recording, and we'll start another one.